Hello. Today is May 29th, 2024. This is Workgroup Serving Weekly Meeting. Welcome, everybody. We have a few items on agenda, and as usually, we'll start with some review what was happening in work streams. Johan, you have first item.
Yeah, so the first item I want to bring up is that for orchestration workstream, we are having a meeting this Friday at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time. It's gonna be focusing on Reserve, so we also invited the Reserve team for the discussion. So I added a link to the workstream document. Feel free to add any items to the agenda before the meeting.
Yeah, this is great. We hope to get more feedback on what's missing and what needs to be done. Okay, I will go next with TRA workstream. TRA workstream is mostly happening offline and in device management working group. Yesterday, John presented the scope of 131, and out of the scope, the features that we asked for is like define the priority of like what we want to request for specific model serving, and I want this device or two of these devices. So this is out of scope in 131. Hopefully in next releases it will be back. But there are a few interesting features there. For multi-host and multi-class, multi-host serving, there will be feature to allow to select devices using some selector like labels, and this will allow to work around some limitations and allow to select the devices that are close together. It will be a little bit of workaround. It wouldn't model networking or anything like that, but labels will give us flexibility. I also presented on yesterday meeting failure modes document, and I think there were a lot of people agree that pod status may be a good place to add some failure information about devices. So I will try to bring this document like on specifics, like a CAP-like document, and maybe even CAP as soon as possible. So hopefully I can squeeze it in 131. John, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, from the point of view of, I just want to make it clear that the constraints that you can apply in 131 on a choice of devices, I mean, I guess from the multi-host perspective, if your controller is saying all of these must be attached to some specific network, in other words, have some specific attribute value, that will be supported. What we wouldn't support is cross-node matching, where you say they all have to be on the same network, but I don't care what network it is. You'd have to say, I want them on this network. So just to be clear of the limits of the functionality, because we really only have a single pod view. And so to do that more complicated, like topology like matching, you need a higher level view across pods, and we don't have that. We can do that topology level matching intra-node. So within a node, line everything up on the same PCIe route. We don't care which PCIe route. On the cross-node thing, the higher level controller would need to explicitly say, put them all on this network or something like that, or in this topology. I think eventually, yeah, the broader thing we're going to have to work together to make a solution for at some point. That's it. That's the only comment.
Yeah, thank you. Do you think that something will be worked for 132, or it's even further down?
So cross node things, we really, it's the data might be there, but the scheduler doesn't work that way today. And so if we need to make that kind of change, we need to discuss how we do gang scheduling. And so I think the DRA effort will provide the data necessary such that a gang scheduling effort could be done, and we can talk about doing that, but it's kind of almost a separate cap at that point, and a separate effort. I think it's definitely worth pursuing, but let's drive it out of this group, honestly, not out of the DRA group. Did you start the recording, by the way? I think you may have forgotten to start the recording.
It is says it's recording.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That
Thank
makes
you
sense.
for
I think that would be a
organizing.
separate cap from the device management piece. I think we need to
Yeah.
drive it out of this group, probably, those requirements through SIG scheduling. But I mean, I think we should work together to make sure that the device data propagates upward enough to make those kind of decisions at this level.
Thank you. Okay. I think we done with workstream updates. Ray, do you have anything on autoscaling or Jackson on multi-host?
Yeah, I actually added something for autoscaling in the agenda, but happy to talk about it really quickly. I just added it at the bottom. We have a sync meeting tomorrow. I left the details there, 8:30 Pacific time, and we'll chat a bit more about warm replicas. So please come with your ideas and take a look at the notes if you can. Thanks.
Thank you.
The multi-host side, I think since this week we have a few meetings, I will try to schedule another one to deep dive into the leader worker set and talk about the like user scenarios next week. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ashok, you're up for metrics.
Yeah. So an update on metric standardization. Thanks to everyone for taking a look and sharing it. I think folks from the NVIDIA side and some of the VLLM maintainers have looked at it as well. I've created a GitHub issue on the VLLM side. I've linked it here. So there are some metrics that people are adding. So we'll track it all as part of the issue. So one ask is anyone who's willing to contribute, please comment over there and take up any metrics that you can take up on the VLLM side. One more follow-up from the discussions in the document was that it would be good to create an open telemetry spec to kind of standardize on model server semantic conventions on the open telemetry side. So Sergey has put it on the agenda for the open telemetry LLM semantic convention working group. There is a meeting this evening. So if anyone is interested in that, please join that too. So the goal there is to kind of work with open telemetry folks to make sure the model server metrics that we are talking about here are standardized and we use the same semantics to refer to it. Then any model server that supports that can eventually use the same naming and support open telemetry metrics out of the box too.
Thank you, Ashok. Yeah, I spoke with OpenTelemetry people, and they currently have good standard for SDK side, for client side metrics and traces. They don't have anything for backend. It's mostly because who was working on that, and they mostly have connections to SDKs and model servers. But they're happy to talk to us and give us home for metrics. If you know anybody who working on model servers and will be interested to join this discussion as well, please spread the word. Johan, do you want to talk about volume source?
Yeah, just in case you missed it, there's a new enhancement proposal that proposes to add a new volume source to Kubernetes that would support OCI images or OCI artifacts. I'd imagine this would be helpful for people who are working on GitOps or also for serving. It's quite important if you are saving models or pulling your models from your image registry. For example, if you're using K-serves model cars, this might improve that experience in the long run, it's basically following the same principle. So yeah, feel free to take a look and leave your comments.
Yeah, this is one of the gaps that. Oh, Mike, you want to say something? You turn on video.
I just put my thumbs up. I think it's going to be important. It's going to be interesting which direction we go with this one. Maybe we need to do both the CSI as a CSI driver and as an OCI artifact type thing, because we need these not just in Kubernetes, but also at the lower level, right? Obviously, we need to be able to mount artifacts for pods that aren't run inside of Kubernetes, or just for containers. So we need to do the work anyway in the container runtimes. Whether we want to share that code or how we want to share that code with the CSI driver, if we go that route, it's a matter of work. But we should talk about it, Sergi. Oh, I see Sally's here. Sorry, Sally.
No, I'm so glad you brought it up. I opened this cup, but with the understanding that's going to be truly collaborative, because I'm not an expert in in what I suggested in the cup. Well, maybe I am. I don't know. Anyways, yes, let's work together and push it forward, either as a CSI or in tree, which I think it should be in tree.
Thank you, Sally. I might ask my teammate to reach out to you regarding this. So he worked on the model cars feature in Kserve specifically. So hopefully there could be some interesting collaboration there.
That's what I'm hoping.
Okay.
I think there's going to be no shortage of bodies to help you work on this. I know Sam also wants to work on this. Yeah.
Asking around, I feel like this has been brought up a bunch of times, but never really officially as a KEP. So here it is.
Yeah.
But I brought that up.
The trigger is we finally shipped the 1.1 specifications that specify how artifacts are supposed to be stored and retrieved in the registry officially. Even though you can already do it in 1.0 specifications, the way it's been done by the registries in the 1.0 specs has been different from vendor to vendor at the registry level and the client level. So, yeah, I think what we're looking for, or at least what I would be hoping here for, is a first run on the actual specs that have been distributed, with some fallbacks for how you would do it on a 1.0 only registry. So a little bit of both. We can go over those.
Sally, is there a shortage of requirements by any means? So, like, is there any request for this group to give more scenarios, or it's already covered very well and it's only a question of how to implement it?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer.
It needs a lot of scenarios.
Yeah.
Even if we're going to just pick out a narrow set for a first release, Sally, there's just too many different scenarios here.
I gotcha. Yeah.
For example, if we're using the refers API, which is a new API, to find artifacts that are relative to a particular image or index, right, then you would need some pattern of how to specify that in the pod spec, so that those artifacts are mounted in a particular path, right? Additionally, you might be just pointing to an artifact as you would an image today, only this is going to be an artifact type. That would be different. You don't need a filter, right? But we haven't decided yet also, do these artifacts have to be related to any of the containers for which, or the pod itself? Right, pods don't have an image in the OCI registries today, but we might need to actually say, hey, if you push a pod artifact that's an index of containers, right, then any artifact that's referring to that or the artifact of that index okay, would be able to be pulled down and put into a path. So that would be a different scenario.
So limit the first implementation, but with the idea that this can grow and yeah.
Yeah. Another thing to consider, which is going to be unique to Kubernetes, Kubernetes hasn't seen this before, is that if you pull these artifacts, they're not in the DAG of the images that you're using. They're on their own. They're like third-party artifacts that need some validation, some verification. So that's a sort of an important part of this. Go ahead, Peter.
I think Ronald might have been first.
Yes. So I think like from this group, it's mainly about models, right? Do we have anything besides models? I think it may be, we may need to gather other use cases beyond models to make it more generic.
Like SBOM, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I don't think that we should be covering all of these cases that we could potentially use. I think we should focus, like, even if it's not a model, like, let's focus on the use case. I have a file in an OCI registry that I want to mount into a container. And I want to, you know, be able to utilize, you know, whatever peer-to-peer, you know, stuff that the OCI can do, or whatever, like chunked images, whatever, like, you know, extensions that you can get from the OCI specification and the specific, like, you know, container managers pulling mechanisms. That's it. So like a model would benefit from that. And, you know, I can imagine a world in which you'd want to populate a volume using that. You know, so you don't have to have an NFS store, but instead like be able to store this file on a registry somewhere and then just pull it down. But other than that, I think that there are too many sort of potential use cases for like, we can refer to a specific kind of file that I think that would sort of muddy the conversation a bit.
So you're thinking that it needs to be an OCI image?
No, specifically an artifact, I think. But like, because it's an artifact, like you can, like, we still can take advantage of the OCI sort of mechanisms that exist. The fact that, you know, there's a bunch of servers that are able to serve these images, and there's all this, you know, tooling around OCI images, moving them around and stuff, or OCI artifacts rather.
That's what I'm asking, because if it's an OCI artifact, it would have to be for a particular type that we'd have to create, like a pod file, the mountable pod file or something.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't think that we need a, go ahead.
From scenarios perspective, I think from this group is OCI is beneficial because many people have optimizations for downloading images. So it's already built in some systems. So like you get those benefits if you use OCI image and like not making it even more generic. That is definitely from this group. And I really want to make sure that if we can concentrate on like specific scenarios and have door open for future extensions, it will be very beneficial. We really need to, like on a serving and AI ML workloads, we need to start delivering something tangible instead of I mean, not instead of, but like tangible that can be used while thinking of future, maybe not like like building the future, like all the features at the same time.
Yeah, it shouldn't take us too long to create a model type, Peter, that's referring to a particular container.
Well, I don't know if we want that. Like,
That's why I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think that we should have a specific type of artifact that we're like treating specially. I think it's like literally imagine this artifact as just a file, you know, whatever artifact type, you know, generic. I don't think we need it to be a model or anything. I think it's just like, it's a file on a registry and we want to be able to pull it down, you know, with the container manager and mount it into the container. No like pod sort of spec thing. I don't think we need to like have any sort of fancy artifact type. I think it's just like, you know, a file that we're pulling in. Does that make sense? Does that conform to what you're expecting, Mike?
That was my idea. Yeah, that was how I was looking at it, but I'm not Mike.
No, I'm trying to map the concept to the artifact definitions, right? To the actual specifications of what an artifact is. It doesn't have blobs and says it's a little different. You can use what's there in an artifact as a blob, but it's not considered a sequence of layers, if you will, Peter, unless that type has a definition that it is, right? And nobody's really created that yet. That's why I sort of asked, well, maybe this is just an image that has a set of files, right? That you want to pull and map, right? Differently than a root FS.
And I think that there exists a future where we may want something like that specifically for the layers aspect of it. But I think that if we're like, I don't think that we should be so prescriptive in the sort of KEP definition where we say like, we expect, this image or artifact to look like a certain thing. I think like if we leave it generic and, we sort of hammer out the different kind of use cases, like I don't see a reason why we would need to change the behavior from the Kubernetes perspective to be able to pull in an image and mount it to a certain location. I think that it could work just the same from the API perspective.
The only thing I was thinking about from the Kubernetes perspective is, okay, how do I say, with this pod, I want to mount, right, this artifact, this image.
Right. So if it is a volume type, like a volume source, then, in the pod spec, you specify it as a volume and imagine the source of that volume being a URL of like a digest. And then then the container manager like interprets that and pulls that down and mounts it at the specified location.
I was trying to say the same thing, just not as articulate.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so I would imagine that at the pod spec level, not as like a set, like an artifact type thing. That's like, that's a pod spec field, and then that's passed down from the Kuba to the CRI.
Right. And what I meant by artifact type is when you point to the URL, we'll pull that manifest down, and then that manifest will say, oh, well, this config says it's an artifact. It doesn't say it's an image. So that's good because I assumed in this particular case you were looking for those, and we'll pull down the contents. And then we just have to decide if you want, what parts of the contents did you want? But yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
The blob. Yeah. Okay.
So from like pushing back to scenarios and what we need from model server, does anybody have experience with patching weights? Do we need this volume to be writable so we can update and patch the weights, or we fine with read only?
I think that it should specifically be read only.
That's what I was.
Yeah, I think we get into weird scenarios. At that point, you're basically making another container if you have a read write mount on top. Assuming that it's a layer, which it isn't as an artifact. Like
another artifact.
I can see a world in which one might want that, but that. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question.
So yeah, if anybody have experiences patching models and wants to comment on this PR KEP, please do so. Because if it's important for model serving, like we'll see more and more like patching of weights. We may want to have it as a requirement instead of like copying everything. Once it's mounted, we may want to have it layered with something on top. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things you need to do. Also, it's clear that some of these models are too large to map in, so you'll need some way to be able to pull just a portion. Yeah.
Okay. If anybody has scenarios that we can bring in, like it's important to address in early stages, please do so. With that, we'll go to the next topic. Chong.
Yeah, so last time I brought up this model workload rollout topic, and mostly around model rollouts. And there are a few comments in the doc, so I'm just gonna share some of the updates and maybe trigger some discussions if people are interested. In terms of how do you deploy the models, I think Fee shared that in Kettle, the model weights, and the model server binary are actually bundled together as a container image. And if I understand correctly, the main motivation was one, to simplify the deployment and rollout, because it's simply a container image updates, and also kind of make sure that the producer of the image makes sure the model and the binaries are compatible. So the consumer, it's a easier story for the consumer to run the workload. And of course, there are some discussions around this, whether this is generally a good practice or not. There's certainly cost in building and maintaining the image build. So I was wondering if anyone has any comments on this. I definitely see this. I think some user guides and probably even some customers are doing that on Google. But I think this is not, well, at least from my understanding, I don't see this as a general, recommendation. So I'm wondering if Faze on the call can give us more insights into this.
Yeah, I'm on course. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, as I said in the dark, it's a big trouble. So I'm very glad we have that the OCI volume stuff. So if it's there, so it just my headache is going to be much less to deal with how to distribute all of such big images. But given that direct mounting doesn't exist, and given the fact that we most likely need to have a API serving service. So because the model is just a library stuff, you need to serving all the API endpoint. That's the reason we have two moving parts. One is the serving endpoints, and the second is the model weight file. Packaging in the same images is going to be the way that we recommend, because in Kaito, there's the differences in Kaito is that we have a pre-built images. So usually it's Kaito maintainers deal with all the complexities of preparing those images. The users is kind of getting away of, unless the license doesn't allow, like Llama one, you have to build your own. So any MIT ones, Apache 2 ones, Kaito maintainers have to build all these images. That being said, even though we have some cost of maintain those images, and if Kaito maintainers has already deal with it, the users is kind of getting all these benefits for free. Another part of the images, we like the way that we like it. So we think images good for distributing. Like if you want to distribute the weights in multiple nodes, not single nodes. So using images is a standard way of doing that. Secondly, it's good for version control, which is can be a big headache on day two operations when you have multiple changing missing parts for the model. And yeah, that's our own motivations, and we do see the cost. It's like you need to pull in huge images, and we were suspicious whether it will work out or not in the beginning, because to be honest, it's my first time to pull more than 30 gig images constantly during our test. But the fact is it's actually working fine, at least so far as far as we can see. And still it is okay in my opinion. So we have tried even pulling 40 gig, 100 gig images. Takes a long time, but it works. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for this. And yeah, by talking to our customer like on Google, we definitely hear that the artifacts management is a pain point, like you said, where how do you version control the bundle, that comes up pretty often.
So I think it's one deployment pattern that we shouldn't dismiss, but at the same time, it's not like the the deployment pattern that we would take as the deployment pattern, right? Like bundling it within a container, there are legitimate use case for it, like as Faye mentioned, but it's not something that you want to anchor a solution on, right? Like you don't want to build a solution around that. Oh, this is the approach where we're going to basically try and influence the community and suggest as a recommendation moving forward. It's just one deployment pattern we should take into account. And I think that's pretty much it. Like at least that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, plus one on that, and also, you know, like for example, KeyServe has this concept of model registry or model repository. The way I see it is kind of the
Model repository.
Yeah, kind of the metadata storage of all the kind of configurations and versions and images as a bundle to deploy. That could be a way of distributing the deployment bundle of the workload. The way I see containers is being used as that like an API or to do that. It's probably not as I guess intuitive as an explicit API of, but from Fee, I guess it kind of works for them. All right, thanks for this. I think the other comment about how do you do a rollout, I think Jashin commented that they are in ByteDance, they are doing a rolling update mostly because of cost of rolling update is more cost effective compared to Blue Green. This seems to be, I guess this is really depends on the kind of workloads you run and the economics you have. I have seen customer asking for Blue Green, but it doesn't come up as often in the kind of model serving applications. I guess mostly for economics reasons.
Yeah, just the comment. I think one reason is the cost, and the other one is I think in our practice, like cluster, we noticed that some of the GPU types, they are kind of short of the capacity. Sometimes if we use different strategies, we may like out of the stocks and blocks the upgrades. So that's another reason, especially under the high load. Yeah, that makes the upgrade process kind of not streamlined. Yeah.
Got it. Do you so in that do you have some sort of kind of metrics or goals you have in terms of upgrade? So for example, in terms of upgrade, in terms of stock out issues you mentioned, would you be comfortable of like retrying the upgrade, if stock out happens, or do you have some requirements of upgrade needs to finish within a certain period of time or like that?
Yes. I think the new revision becomes available, the fully available. That duration really matters. Yeah, that's the key metrics we are watching. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Do you see any risks doing rolling updates versus for a Blue Green type of upgrades, you generally have the ability to roll back much faster. Do you see that in practice?
Yeah, in our cases, we barely roll back deployments because most of the services or more, because the inference workloads are pretty simple, right? As that's been tested offline first or in staging environment first, and we kick off the rollout. So we barely do row banks. So I don't see like a lot of risk to do rolling upgrades.
Oh, I see. So you heavily rely on the sort of qualification or test evaluation on your staging environment and making sure your production rollout is relatively low risk.
Yes.
One more question about the rolling update. Do you do just like a kind of deployment style, like a Kubernetes deployment style rolling update, or do you do any sort of like canary that you control some traffic split between the old and new versions?
We have two patterns. The naive way is like Kubernetes deployment style, like rolling upgrades. But we implement some other like APIs for operation teams to get involved. For example, we can pause the upgrade, etc. So that's additional primitives that we introduce in our like orchestration layer. Yeah.
I see. So is this like an in-house solution? I wonder if there's something that we could contribute to the upstream Kubernetes to have some sort of like a control, like a pause rollout, or
yeah, for this one, maybe we can talk about it offline, and I can give some reference and let's see whether it's possible to do some work on upstream. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. Cool. I think that's the major comments on this doc. Also, I see some open source solutions like Argo. I see Yuan commented. Yuan, I think you are involved in the Argo. Do you mind sharing some of the insights of Argo and how people use that?
Yeah, so Argo rollouts provides several advanced rollout options, but it's mostly for applications, CI/CD type of applications. So I don't see it very often in the model serving side. So,
do you have any guess or insights of why this is? So, for example, in the if in the cattle case, right? If you just build everything into a container, then it's simply a deployment spec update with container image or a new version of container image. Then Argo can easily kind of handle this kind of scenario, right? Do you know why, for model rollouts and people are not?
Kserve currently only supports Canary rollout. I know some people are using it, but it really depends on the business requirements. And I did see some one of the open issues in Kserve where the community member showed interest of integrating Argo rollouts with Kserve. So I'd imagine that's also like interesting to some users. So I'll try to find the issue and add a link to the document.
Thank you. All right, so that's the update. Thanks. Oh yeah, so in terms, so I'm just writing a doc trying to summarize how people deploy models and servers, and so I'll probably share that in next meeting. Like either you bundle everything in a container, and some people just use a remote storage like S3, or I'm trying to summarize that, and maybe that will trigger some discussions.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Thank you for driving this. With that, we're at the end of our agenda. Is there anything else anybody wants to speak about? Okay, if not, we get 15 minutes back. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Please remember there are more meetings coming from specific work streams. Pretty much every day this week. Like today is OpenTelemetry in the evening. Tomorrow is autoscaling, and Friday is Reserve. So if you're interested in any of this, please join those meetings. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Good day.